The Public Works meeting to order for September. First, we have guests from Centrica here, and I don't think Mitch Coombs and Scott need an introduction at this point in time. Can't remember your other engineer's name.
Ryan.
Yeah. Sorry about that. Yeah. They've been here a number of times with us. You know, we started with a large project at the Public Safety Building. They're currently working in DMV and the Treasurer's Office, real property, doing a lot of renovations out there along with energy projects. And we're also trying to work on the highway garage roof and solar project out there, which is up and coming. But we're looking into next year at this point in time and what project can we do next. So we had kind of focused on the DSS building. DSS building is not our oldest building, but it's certainly all the mechanicals are in the age to be replaced. So we thought that building could use some energy upgrades. Bob's been talking to me for a number of years. Facilities did a lot of work out there and did a lot of things, carpets and things like that, and appease people, but all the mechanics need to be upgraded at some point in time. So we thought that was a good time for an energy project. So we called Mitch. We've had some subsequent meetings with Bob and staff out there. They've been working diligently, and they have a little proposal here for us today on consideration. This is nothing we're going to vote on tonight. We're just giving all this information for everybody to chew on a little bit. So, awesome. Mitch, take it away.
Yeah, thank you.
Just to add one item. So, taking a look at the DSS building actually gets dovetailed into the overall facilities plan for the county that I'm currently working on. And again, as Supervisor Knott has indicated, it's not the oldest building, but it definitely is one of the buildings that is pretty efficient as far as its space and use. But it is aging as well, and we've run into serious issues this past summer as far as air conditioning units going down and so forth. The roof is reaching its useful life. So again, it's coming of age where upgrades are needed. And since it is a building that I'm looking to keep, because again, it is very efficient as far as its useful space, and it's overall not in bad shape, but it does need some upgrades. So again, this does dovetail into that piece of facilities project that I'm working on.
Yeah, thank you. Good to see everybody here in person. I think the last time we spoke to you was the end of April, and it was virtual. So it's good to be back in person, yes, the bigger boardroom. So I'm Mitch, Scott, Ryan. Scott and I, we've been here for a few years now going over the projects like Ron mentioned. So we look forward to going over the DSS preliminary feasibility assessment. As Ron mentioned, Ray gave us a call, I think at the beginning of summer, and mentioned that you guys were looking at this building from a facilities improvements as well as capital improvements. And so we got with him and his team on site along with Bob and his team and really got a good idea of what the problems are, some of the challenges that you guys have faced, whether it's the roof, some of the windows that are leaking. And then Scott and his team got in there and took a deeper dive into maybe some of the solutions that we can look at. So today is really to take you through what a project could look like. We've got a long list of items that we've looked at. Certainly, as always, please interrupt, jump in if you have questions as we go through this. You know, we want to leave this meeting where most of the questions are answered and we have a good idea of what to do moving forward. So Kelly, I think that slide's good. We know the building that we're looking at. If you can go to the next slide, I'm going to turn over to Scott and have him start taking you through some of the improvements we're looking at.
Sure. So, and also as Ron had mentioned, this was the building right now is about 30 years old, just to kind of keep that in reference, where pretty much everything there is original to the building. So all the mechanicals are there, the roof is there, everything has kind of hit that age. I know, Brian, as we mentioned, we're scrambling for some of the AC replacements this summer. 2 of the units went down, but they are also all original. So it's kind of something to keep in mind as everything is sort of hit really, it's 20 to 25 year lifetime is usually what's expected. So 30 is kind of borrowed time. One of the first things we did look at was putting a solar array on to try and help with some of the sustainability goals, as well as making use of the roof space that's there. It's kind of nice. So we're looking at about 120 kW array, and that's kind of based on just an initial assessment. And that's going to produce about 51% of the current building consumption. So the building's already relatively efficient. The LED lights have already been installed there. There's been a number of things. So the offset of 50% is pretty nice. Unlike the other solar project, all the production of this array will be consumed on site. There's not anything that's going to be exported to other buildings. So it's really just going to help offset that bill pretty much completely. That should make the interconnection a little easier. but also it's a really good use of a nice, pretty open roof space that's there now. So next slide.
Estimated time to pay off the investment?
So we've ramped it all together for the solar. That payback in between the solar and the roof is probably about 16 years at this point. Now, that I do want to clarify that by saying that is based on the utility information we have. We have a year of data for consumption kind of pre-COVID. We've gotten a couple of the bills from the most recent 6 months, but there are a pretty big gap between them. And we have anywhere from 14.9 cents to 19 cents per kilowatt hour. So that we need a full year of data that's current to be able to really give you that accurate payback number. So we've used a 14-cent value for that payback value. We're anticipating it may be slightly higher than that actually over the past 12 months. So that payback may come down a little bit. But this is just a preliminary first pass number is about a 16-year payback.
And working with other systems in parallel to get it more efficient, your consumption's going to go down.
Yes, so your overall consumption will go down. We hope that then the solar output will actually cover more than 50% or so of the current consumption of that building.
Is that the roof that picture shows?
Yes, so these two pictures are the existing roof that's there now.
It doesn't look like it's that bad. Or is it
It's
just-
so right now it's not that it's that bad. It's a membrane roof, but it's actually over the top of an existing metal roof that was originally put on the building. And so our understanding is it was a couple of years after the metal roof was put on, there were some issues. I know the building was built and the county leased it. And so there's actually a layer of gypsum board on top of the metal, and then there's the membrane that's over the top of that. And so the roof itself is in reasonable shape right now, but it's also over 20 plus years old. So it's to the point where while we were up there, especially if you're walking around, there's a couple spots that are feeling a little bit funky underneath that. And it looks like where we're starting to see, there's the potential to start to get some pull away, or it might become an issue before too long.
And then I was gonna say from a lifespan standpoint, this roof is very similar as far as when it was put down to that roof over at the DPW garage. And we're running into serious issues at the DPW garage where I know we're in the process of looking at getting it
Yes.
replaced, but it is pulling away and we're getting, one strand after another because again, it's age. Each one of those seams is tearing apart. So right now, knock on wood, we do not have issues with this particular roof. But that's the thing, we want to try to get ahead of the game and replace it prior.
Especially if you're gonna look at putting a solar array on it. It wouldn't make
Yeah.
sense to put on an existing roof for sure.
Ray, can I just get some clarity? Because you're aware of this and Brian as well. The issues I'm having on some of the walls where I'm getting a leak and they're damaging. Is that roof related or is that gutter related?
So that has a few things. That's gutter related as well as some of the seals around the windows, not the windows themselves, but the lack of any caulking or missing sealant around the frames, and there's water infiltration in through those gaps. So it's a combination of the gutter system as well as the sealant or lack thereof around those window frames.
That's not roof related, right?
That's correct. Right.
Yeah. So, which speaking of roof related, that kind of goes along with the next item we looked at would be to swap this roof out. We would look to put in a white roof system. So very similar to the one that we proposed over at the highway garage that's going to be going in. So it's going to be a white roof that's going to go on top of 2 inches of a high density polyiso foam base that would be able to support a ballasted PV system. So that'll give us a little bit more roofing insulation as well as a brand new roofing membrane. And with that, we're going to install a new gutter system that's going to be there now, since what's there is we're going to have to rework the edge metal as part of that roof. And I know Brian and his maintenance team mentioned they have a lot of issues with the gutters needing to be cleaned constantly due to the trees that are right next to the building. So they blow a lot of debris that's in there. It plugs the gutters. That's part of the flooding problem you have where it overflows and runs down the side instead. New roof would be nice. We're also going to go over a couple of roof hatches that aren't needed anymore that are there. There's really no way to access them. We're not going to rip them off completely because then you create another potential leak area. But instead, we're just going to go membrane right over the top so it's sealed. That way it's not an issue to worry about. There's also an old satellite dish that's up there. That's going to come down. We'll make some space for some more solar panels at that Next slide, please.
You doing anything with the gutters, gutter guards or anything?
Yes, that's actually the next thing is new gutters and downs. No, hey, I love questions that we have the answer to. They've always said, you know, the best question is one you have an answer for, but even better is one with a slide.
Trees down.
So we're not looking to cut trees down. That's not up to us. That's up to you guys if you don't want the trees.
The trees will cut down your solar efficiency though.
So the trees do cut down on depending on the particular angle that we've got. So it is something where we know we've got some shading to contend with there. But at this point, we still have a lot of open roof space that we can deal with without having to do any tree removal.
Well, do any of the trees, if they were to fall, threaten a potentially new membrane on the top of that roof?
If anything, you're really dealing more with the building itself. They're not tall enough that they're going to be able to hit that membrane, but they are to the point that they would hit the glass or the side of the building. So based on what's currently around there now, I don't think it's a roof issue.
We
as much.
trimmed them last year to keep them kind of off the roof as best we can, but once that wind started moving those whirly jigs around that roof, you know, immediately. So.
Yeah, well, are you proposing a similar membrane to this? Are there's gonna be white, it's still gonna be rollout roofing?
Yes, sir. Yep. So it's going to be,
It's seamed, right, though?
it will be seamed and they're going to be a heat welded seam. And then that new roof is going to come with a 25-year system warranty on it. So it'll be inspected and then we install the solar array and then it's inspected again to make sure there's no leaks on it. And then that whole system should be warranted.
When you put the panels on it, does that hurt the warranty?
It does not. And so that's part of why in the previous meeting you mentioned there's a high density polyiso. And so that's a 125 PSI compressive strength insulation board that's meant to be able to handle foot traffic and also the ballast blocks that we would use as part of the mounting system. So we're specifically working, we actually normally wouldn't call in contractors at this point, but we had the roofer come and visit us as part of the preliminary assessment, specifically to look at what we would need to do for this roof to make sure it would be good with a solar array.
And if the panels are going after the membrane, you have to have some accountability there, because those things do puncture easily.
They certainly can, and that's part of where so after the roof gets installed, we'll have their warranty specialists from the factory come out, they review it, they sign off on that, then the roof is installed, and then it's inspected again after that to make sure if there's any issues, then we would have to take care of the solar installation team, make sure that's taken care of prior to turnover. So that will all be taken care of as part of it. So they are we try to have a larger footprint, and we're also putting a slip sheet underneath any place that's going to touch the roof membrane that's there now. So you have a doubled membrane underneath each kind of foot that's going to touch. So next slide, please. And this is something we actually had just touched on as well as some building envelope improvements. Again, we asked some of our specialty contractors to come out and take a look at what's there now. Given that's a lot of caulking, there's been some issues. I know Brian's guys have done some repairs there now. So what we would do is we would reseal that joint between the metal window frames and the outside of the building itself, or the ephes. And the ephes is an exterior facing and installation system, or fascia and installation system, excuse me. It basically just means that the insulation is on the outside of the building and then it's kind of stuccoed over rather than being on the inside of the building. It's also Drive-It is another name you may have heard it called at some point in time.
Is that what burned that skyscraper in China? Did you see that one was on fire?
I did not. I don't know.
The whole surround of the skyscraper was on fire. It was pretty interesting. I was wondering what material they'd used.
I don't know. That one, I did not see that. I don't think it's this. And if it is, I'll ask Ray.
I'm not familiar with it, but that rules like control. I'll have to look into that.
Look it up. Changsha, China. It's incredible.
When was it?
2 weeks ago.
So we would look to reseal the window unit itself. So where the metal frame is inside the system, we would strip that caulk and reseal. And we would also be resealing the joints within the ephes itself. Since that's kind of near its lifetime, that would be using it. We're going to have the materials in a lift here. It makes sense to kind of seal that exterior system all the way around. While we're doing that, especially if we're going to be up close with the lift, we'll look to see if there's any window seals that look like they may be an issue. But the majority of it appears to be leaking between the interface of that window unit and the ephes itself. So it would address that issue. And it should give us a little bit of savings if there's any drafts or anything else coming in.
You're cutting the old caulk out, right?
Yes, they're going to just remove whatever's there. They're going to be able to put it back in. And so we're working with an architectural glass company for that purpose, where they do this type of installation on their own. So next slide, please.
Every question I ask, what you guys. Getting home,
The next one we were looking at is actually the building automation system. So what's there now is there is a centralized system connected to a computer down in the basement. It's an antiquated Johnson control system. It was put in back in the early 90s. Of course, it is, no longer supported. It needs a whole bunch of upgrades to go anywhere. So what we would look is we would put in a new DizTech digital control system. This is the same system that we've put in with Brian over at Public Safety and also at 325. Allow that same kind of remote monitoring and set point adjustment. It would really let us make sure we've got the scheduling going on and also the night setback when people aren't in the building, also the remote alarming. It should give us a better grip over what's actually going on there now rather than just kind of letting everything run so nothing shuts down or turns off when it's not supposed to.
Yeah. And Brian, I think you mentioned you've been sending guys in on weekends just to make sure the
I
system
did
hasn't
at
done.
the beginning, because we were having issues with the compressors coming back on. Once it went over through its energy saving, and then they walk into a building 85, it was awful. So we had a guy go in there and check it. So then we finally just kept it going and took the energy savings right out of it. Somewhere there was something going on. We couldn't figure it out. So, but yeah, so that was, happening.
Yeah, the existing programming that's there is all text-based. There's no graphics. It's not the easiest thing to kind of navigate through. So we would put in a new graphical-based system to allow for control, setback, optimal start-stop, remote alarming, really all the same features we've got at the other facilities within the county. Next slide, please. The next one, I know, not a picture that's super descriptive of what's there now, but it's kind of hard to get stuff up above the ceiling. We would look to replace the existing air handling units. So there are 13 of them in the building, I believe, and 2 of them have currently failed. I know Brian asked to schedule a replacement there, I think back in March. And I don't know if you've actually gotten yours yet.
They're supposed to come the 14th of next month. But,
So
Right in time for air conditioning.
yeah, exactly. So it's kind of, we know that there's a lot of supply chain issues, very long lead things. We would look to try and swap out the rest of the units all at once rather than trying to deal with a failure here or there, an additional leakage. So this is something where really they are at the end of useful life. They're not super complicated, but otherwise you don't have any air conditioning or heating that's going to be within the building. So we would look to replace those existing units.
I'm sorry, with 2 new ones coming in, will they then be replaced?
No, we would replace the remaining units with the same specification.
Okay.
So you would have 13 matching units. And I know Brian had checked with us also to make sure those 2 new units are going to be compatible with a new control system without significant rework.
We paid attention to that earlier on before we approved
Yeah,
that
So-
repair job this year. That's where we brought these guys in and said, let's think about it.
Those 2 will be connected to your existing system since they can reconnect the control wiring. And then we would come back in with our controls team and sort of swap over those panels that are above the ceiling. So that way it's we're not paying twice for the same thing. Next slide, please. So the next one is boiler replacement, same kind of idea. There's currently 4 hot water boilers that are in the basement right now. They are original. One of them, they're having a lot of problems with blowdown, that one of the relief valves sort of keeps popping off and keeps sort of just deciding to dump all over the basement. There's also one of them that needs to run all summer long to provide domestic hot water because there's an indirect water heater that's there. And as a result, occasionally it starts sending hot water into the building during the summertime. So now we're air conditioning to counteract some of the heat. And that's just based on how they're zoned and piped currently. So our suggestion would be that we want to go ahead and take these 4 boilers out that are causing some problems. We put in some new condensing boilers, they're higher efficiency by about 15 to 18%. They can work at a lot lower water temperatures typically. And with the new control system now, we can actually adjust that water temperature set point to kind of maximize the efficiency. We're also, and I think it's the next slide, but I'm not sure if I'm lying, we would swap out that existing water heater that's there now that relies on the boilers to run. Really, the only hot water needs at that building are for hand washing in the bathrooms. So we would look to put in an electric heat pump water heater, something where that way it's not going to run nearly as often because it's really just for hand washing. And when it does need to run, it's actually going to pull any waste heat that's out of that mechanical room. And it should be pretty quiet. And there's also some very nice incentives available for those right now from National Grid. So it's kind of a chance to reduce a little bit of carbon footprint, but also not have to run boilers all summer long. So that'll be kind of a nice effect to not have that additional something to maintain as well. Next slide. One of the other big ones that's on here is replacement of the existing chiller that's there. So this is what making all the air conditioning for the building. This is called a split chiller. So there's a big fan unit that's outside, kind of in the screened area. Inside is what's the evaporator unit and a couple of compressors. One of these has already had to be swapped out. The other one, if and when it goes, Brian's going to have to actually pull a wall out to try and get to it because it's inaccessible. These are older reciprocating compressors that don't have a lot of turn down. We would be installing a new unit with some compressors that have a lot more adjustability between stages. So it would give us a lot better control, kind of those in-betweens. And also our efficiency should go way up. The fans outside would be able to ramp as variable speed. And so we should get some nice efficiency gains by swapping this out. Again, this is something that's original to the building and is kind of the energy savings isn't going to cover all of the upgrade costs just because chillers unfortunately don't work that way very well for us. But it is something that when it goes, it would leave the building without air conditioning.
Bob would be upset.
So,
Or the staff would be.
So because I just ran through all those, this is just a summary of all those things that we just talked about. In case anybody wanted to just read back through it, had any questions on anything, I'm happy to pause there for a minute if anybody's got any questions about that proposed scope. And also just to reiterate, this is kind of our initial first pass where we spent a couple of days, we've cast a big net. Really what we're looking for, our next step is to do our investment grade audit. And that's where we would dig in a little bit more and be able to get much more detailed specifications on what needs to be replaced, firm costs for things, lay out exactly what that's going to look like. This is really our first pass construction estimate, that kind of an idea. So if there's something somebody really doesn't like in here, we just won't investigate that in the next step. Otherwise, our intention is to try and take a look at this as our next part of our audit.
I like that the existing windows seem to be acceptable from a resistivity perspective, right? If you're just gonna caulk them.
Yes. So they
That would
are,
be a massive expense.
it would be very expensive to replace them at this point. It's something where so I believe work has been done on those. They look at if they've been resealed and since they've ever been installed, there's work that's been
The
done.
windows were replaced probably, I would say 6-7 years ago.
Mhm.
The frames were there, just the new,
Right. New glass and seals
glass and seals.
and some tinting's been done there as
Yes,
well,
tinting,
right?
Yeah, tinting.
So there's been some other rework that's already occurred there. So we didn't want to try and duplicate those efforts, given that it was pretty diminishing returns.
Oh, yeah.
So any other questions on this proposed scope at this point? Yeah, please go ahead. No. So one other item that came up, and I don't want to dismiss it, but we did want to talk about it, is just we looked also heavily after talking with Bob and his staff about EV charging. So the intention is DSS has a lot of vehicles that are there. They're sort of staged there. We really would like to take a look at putting in some EV charging stations for the county. So we've had some discussions with National Grid, and National Grid has an EV Make Ready program. And also they kind of have a preparation team where they will work pretty much hand in hand with the county to see what National Grid can take care of with the incentives that are available through the state and NYSERDA. And given that also Hudson is a high need area, they can cover about 90% of those costs, with the county really only having to come up with 10%. So we are sort of working hand in hand with National Grid and the county to kind of facilitate those discussions happening. We didn't want to necessarily try and plug into our project at this point and risk not getting some of the money that's available through the utilities. But also they want to do sort of a fleet assessment for the county. So not just DSS's fleet, but also trying to take a look at what your vehicle infrastructure looks like across the entire county.
Were you talking the quick chargers, were they talking, or?
They were talking both fast chargers and level 2.
Okay.
And so part of that is that they would like to evaluate how are those vehicles going to be used. If it's something where they can be charged overnight, they would say how many level 2s might make sense. If there's a lot of touch and go during the day, to put in some decent fast chargers. And also really as part of that, to evaluate what the incentive would look like for the county if they're considered publicly available or limited only for county
At
use.
this point, the county doesn't really have any electric vehicles.
Right.
Just
Yeah.
from the sheer standpoint of
Yep.
the cost side of it, the economic side of it.
Right.
But that's definitely something that we would be looking into.
And so- Right, and so part of how we had looked at that, and we originally reached out to National Grid, is understanding, looking at the solar array, we're gonna have to go through an interconnection process, and National Grid's gonna need to evaluate the existing building electrical service. So we wanted to kind of consolidate that if we had to look at something for the vehicle charging as well as the solar. In that discussion, they most likely would set a new electrical service for the EV chargers alone, and they would upgrade their network, everything downstream that would be needed to make that
Do
happen.
we have parking, enough bar for a parking bar to start putting in charges there?
Parking, we talked about this.
That's
Probably a bit of an issue,
Yeah.
although it looks as though they could put a row out. It would encroach on some of that lawn, but they could put a row out in the front, but there was some talk that we might expand in the back, and that might make sense.
We currently have a number of fleet cars there. I mean, to
So
start
it
with
would be
some of these.
eventually switched over to EVs.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we have a row of fleet cars and it's right next to three-phase power, so I mean, we would put in his own system for that, but
Probably
it
have
would be a
We don't
start.
have really.
9, 10 spots for vans on that front row.
The question is, can anybody else use them, or is there a need?
Yeah, because we.
Well, would anybody else, is there enough of demand where people would park there to charge and walk and tour?
Right.
Yeah, that's it.
I mean, I think you're, from what I understand about it, I mean, you may have some employees that might come use them during the day, but I know in Climate Smart, committee, we had talked about that, and the consensus there seemed like nobody was gonna park there and go to Warren Street to go to dinner, but that could be explored a little further. I don't know. I mean, and again, I think there's other ones available in the city now that aren't being used, so, but as time goes on, I guess there's gonna be a bigger need.
This is just a thought, because I'm unaware of what this ultimate project on 7th Street is going to turn out to be, but is there a bunch of commercial space that is thought to be there? Because that'd be the one.
So that could change that, yes. So then you might have somebody park there and walk to a store. You're right.
Gonna be a mix of commercial.
Right, so that's one thing that would cross my mind,
Yeah.
that, because no one ever uses our lot. Yeah, I notice even when I come to the parade, I'm the only one that comes there.
Right.
But it could become.
It could be changing, yes. Yeah,
If more commercial
good point.
around the 7th Street.
I don't know if these guys know that, but there's a pretty large proposed development on 7th Street, going in there near the firehouse, where they're talking about doing a mix of commercial buildings and apartments and stuff. And
Okay.
so that could change the need for EV.
It could, and if you have a DC fast charger that's there, some of the newer generation EVs, they can get a bunch of charge in 20 minutes or so. So if somebody really needs to park and plug into a fast charger, they might sit and watch something on their phone for 20 minutes. If there's that light commercial there, they may take a walk to go get a coffee. I don't expect they're going to park and walk all the way to Warren Street and go out to dinner and spend hours that way. But it's also the kind of thing where the county can get a significantly higher incentive currently for making them publicly available, even if nobody's going to use them. So as long as they are open for somebody to use and they're not locked down with a key code, and they have to be listed on basically a charge point site or one of the available web apps to say.
It's my understanding that we could make them public available for certain hours of the day and qualify for that.
Yep.
And incentive for that, right? Yeah.
Correct. And so that's part of what
We could use them for our own use at night,
Yes, and so if the county has vehicles that are parked there and you're charging them, that's okay because they're in use. It's just a matter of during the day, somebody would want to be able to pull in. If they're busy and they're charging cars, that's still okay. It's really a matter of trying to look at how can we maximize what the county would be able to get with incentives. If you were to say, no, we're only going to be able to use key fobs to charge vehicles, then that makes them not publicly available. And then you only get, I think, 50% as opposed to 90% of an incentive.
Yeah, and as of right now, I mean, the incentives are changing. They're mainly
Right.
going up from, the utility and the state. We anticipate that to just
Right.
continue. So I think obviously a larger assessment to look at how the county would use it would probably be a good next step. And National Grid offers that. And I think it's a free assessment that they offer if you sign up under it. So Could be
We
a
have to
good
really
mix.
think about if we put it there and who's gonna use it, and is that gonna tie you up, as far as parking at this point?
Yeah, that'd be part of the logistics. and
I think we kind of talked a little bit about that already,
A little bit.
I mean, eventually, if we get your fleet, which down a pipe, we will be switching over, that could be something we can consider, but just to have everybody just pulling in there and charging, I don't know if that's gonna mess up your lot, you know, take away from parking.
Yeah, I think what we would just want to do is
Just have.
designate a few of those, which we could do logistically. Weekends, obviously,
Yeah.
you know, most of the fleet's going to be there and charging anyway. So like I said, if we were to designate a few for the public, you know, I don't see a problem with that as long as we think about it in advance. And again, I think if the 7th Street projects take off, you could see real, because you might even get folks who are in those apartments that say, oh yeah, that's where I can charge.
Yeah.
Or that's where I can park during a snowstorm.
Or I
Right, yeah.
That's not gonna have a problem.
Facilities doesn't love that.
But right now, we're keeping that separate from.
Right, correct.
This priority project, so that we
Yep.
don't tie that up, but you'll put us in touch with them, so. they're
Actually,
ready.
I've already reached out to them. Yeah, so, Centrica did provide contacts
Yep.
for Central Hudson, or for National Grid. I did reach out to National Grid,
Mhm.
had a very brief discussion with them, and they are speaking with the county,
Okay.
looking at a more, broader scope.
Yeah.
Right, start.
Actually looking at the fleet, understanding that there are multiple locations that, you know, would be fit. Obviously, DSS is a great location, you know, perhaps at DMV, also DPW. We're talking about the potential facility as far as the,
OFA.
OFA building.
Right, yeah.
So they are very interested in getting together with the county
Good.
and discussing our goals, our future goals as far as the overall fleet, which would then lead to the location of these various chargers. And again, they did indicate that that was, you know, free service to us, to have that discussion for us to start thinking along those lines of
That's right, we give National Grid a lot of money.
whether it's a certain percentage that we're looking at as far as the fleet, and what that might be as far as that.
Yeah, they're ramping up on that side of things for sure. They are putting full teams in place on the ED side
Yeah.
because it's such an initiative, so. I think
They're trying to figure out where the new federal money is coming from too, so.
Yeah.
Like everybody else.
Yeah, right,
It's coming.
there's
right?
promises, but.
Sure.
What's this building have for packaging?
It's got whatever Brian wheels over here and runs extension cords too.
Yeah, right, no, that's another story.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're working on that. We gotta get back.
So this next, any other questions about the items that we included? Okay. So the next slide is the preliminary proposal financials. And again, keep in mind, these are estimates. Like Scott said, the roofing numbers as good as we can get right now. This was a real number from a roofer that's actually doing the other roofs within the county. So we're looking at total project as of right now, 1.9 million. These are 2022 numbers. They're obviously, you know, keeping that in mind, a lot of things have gone up in price, but about half that cost, approximately 50%, is the roof and solar, is what this comes out to. The solar is, however, driving the payback on this project. So the next line of the rebate of over $53,000, that's all related to the solar portion of the project. And again, that's through NYSERDA based on the current block that NYSERDA has. Based on looking at it right now, it looks like it should be available, but it all depends on how quickly we lock that in. Once a contract's signed, we can lock it in at that point, but until then, you can't lock that in. So after the rebate, the county's looking at just short of 1.9 million in terms of total costs. Now, one thing that we have, and I know it's in finer print at the bottom, is there are some additional credits and rebates that we're anticipating that are going to be coming out through the Inflation Reduction Act that just got signed into law about a month ago. One specifically around the solar and the tax credit that municipalities have not been able to take advantage of up until now. That, based on the way that bill was written, it will be a direct payment to the municipality, and it could be up to 40% of the solar cost of the system. So, you know, we're looking at that and we're saying this could be another $100,000 worth of rebate or credits coming back to the county. We don't know how that's going to come back yet. It's pending Treasury guidance at this point, but we're anticipating that's going to be coming out by the end of this year, going into early next year. So that'll be part of our final cost when we come back to you guys. We're going to have that figured out, and it's going to be factored in here because it is that significant.
What is the solar breakout to be in that project, just roughly?
You know, Stan?
Financials.
So the solar on this one, because I know we combined the solar with the roof, as Mitch mentioned, is about half. The solar is probably, I want to say it's 450 roughly at this point, and that's without us getting a firm bid on it as much as using some numbers that our solar team has kind of used as a thumb in the air.
There's a $50,000 rebate on.
So it's about 50,000 from NYSERDA right now. It's the NYSERDA block rebate. And then as Mitch was mentioning with,
Could be another 100 grand.
well, possibly even more than that. So the ITC, or investment tax credit, has been available for commercial solar developers for a long time. As part of the IRA, what's been proposed is 30% is now available to municipalities or tax exempt entities. And since Hudson is high need, another 10% on top of that, so 40%. But because that can now be a direct pay available, it would be the kind of thing that once this thing gets put online, the county can then get a check for 40% of that cost. So that's why we haven't factored that into these numbers. And we also need to see kind of what additional costs in that solar would fall under that. In some cases, we may be able to include part of the roof. We may be able to include some of the electrical upgrades, also interconnection fees and any other. So there's a couple of moving bits and pieces that go along with that. But once we have that treasury guidance, we'll put that into the cash flow. There's also another tax credit that applies per square foot for energy efficiency. The solar array qualifies for enough of a reduction that we may be able to get an additional, it's anywhere now from 50 cents up to like $4 a square foot, and it's an additional rebate. So those are all things that they made a law and they said, hey, Treasury, you figure it out. And so that's got to come once that guidance is sort of formed up. A bunch of folks in our industry are very interested in seeing where this goes. But so we're going to be looking to apply that. Yes.
But even if you did get it at $400,000, is the savings going to be about $26,000 a year?
That's correct.
It's a 15, 16-year payback.
Well, so the 15, 60 years is just for what the payback would be on the solar
Oh,
itself.
I understand. But
Yeah.
That's paying for itself, though.
Yep.
The solar will pay for itself.
25?
I'm sorry, what was that?
25-year life expectancy?
Yes, 25 years is really, that's what the panel warranty will be. The inverters, I think, are 10 or 15. And the roof should see a minimum of 25. And actually, we expect it to be extended because now there's not as much solar incidence on the roof itself because of the panels.
Yep. And the other thing to know is the savings value there, just short of 26,000, is on the lower end of that range that we found. So the 14 cents. I mean, we all know
Electric rates go up the next few years.
costs are going up. I mean, we all see it at
The
home.
rates are 14 to 19 cents. You use it 14
Yes.
cents.
Correct.
For now, we're gonna, as part of the next step, we will get a full year, dive into that and come back. It's likely gonna land on the higher end of that, which is only gonna increase that number and give a lower payback.
Yeah, when I spoke to Centrica, we wanted to be a little more conservative as far as the payback and not overcommit.
There is a small amount of annual material replacement savings of $800.
Yeah.
And again, that's something that will firm up. We're really not looking to take any extra savings that you guys have to pull out of your budget that you need to spend elsewhere. This is very minimal, knowing that, it's likely going to save some here. That may change, but total year one savings is approximately $27,000. Any questions on that? So these are the next steps. This is, the same process we followed for the previous projects. At this point, you guys are seeing this for the first time. This is our preliminary feasibility assessment. We're looking for feedback from you. As Scott mentioned, the step is to then take it to the next step of development, which is where we put together firm fixed numbers for you on everything. And everything on the list there either has a benefit to be replaced or updated or needs to be replaced or updated at this point. So I think we included everything that we thought made sense. Obviously, the EV stuff, it's changing. I think that's going to be beneficial for you, but there's still more to figure out in that case. Once we get to the IGA, we'll get to work again. So, Scott and his team, we've been here enough. It'll probably take us, I think we have 4 months factored in there. The goal would be to try to get this to a point where if you guys approve it, we can get materials on order and try to get to the point where we're replacing these systems when it's not the current system that you're using. Like you mentioned, the chiller is needing some updates, the boilers, both your heating and cooling systems need attention. So trying to replace those so you don't have emergency repairs is kind of the top of our list if we can get there.
So the investment grade audit,
Mhm.
that one is where we have to pay for that.
So we just ask the county to say, if you guys don't do a project, we just ask you to reimburse us for engineering time. So that's, right now we've got that fee. We also would be doing a structural analysis on the building and the roof to make sure it can support the solar system. We do a drone flight over the top of that. We would do some electrical engineering work on it. So I think we've got a fee of maybe 25 is what we would look at this point, where if the county didn't go ahead, we would just say, we just also, or if we came back with a $4 million project instead of 2, would be, hey guys, sorry, we're way off the mark for some reason.
But normally, if you move, it just rolls into the project cost is what
Our actual costs.
Yep. But it would be getting bids, getting final numbers, ready for construction, right? Exactly, ready for construction. Correct.
And again, for the supervisors, I did put a request in as part of the 2023 budget as a project for the DSS earmarking this project. So again, as you start looking at budget, I know the supervisors are in the midst of taking a look at budget. We have earmarked and have at least put a request in. So hopefully that does get into the 2023 budget.
I have a quick question. I might have missed the answer already, but how long is it taking, like you said, that like the cooler and that?
Chiller.
Yeah, how long is it taking to get these items?
So as Brian mentioned, just to get the air handling units that are there, they ordered in March. They're
Okay.
supposed to come in the middle of next month. We're seeing this on our DMV project where we ordered heat pumps in May. They're supposed to come down in December. We're seeing our cooling tower that we ordered in May is supposed to ship, I think, in January. So we're seeing 7 to 8 month leads on things minimum right now. In some cases, it's getting better, and in other cases, they just keep pushing numbers out for us. Roofing membrane is one that we've already found where there was a pretty big supply chain hiccup, and so the roofers they're dealing with their backlog, and they're basically given an allotment. And so we're trying to slot those allotments in now where we're going to get the DMV and the treasurers, but we didn't get the highway garage as of yet. That's going to ship next year. So we're still very much seeing some of these delays. That's why, we would really try.
You don't get there.
Right.
Yeah, we would try and time the market, but it also just means if you have a failure, you may just be without until you can get either something that you can sort of cobble to fit, or you just have to wait for a replacement to be made available. So it's been a challenge for us, to say the least, but I think also for most of the contractors around.
This year, we bought some portable air conditioner units that have been serving well, and
Does
We can move
pursuing
those
this
around.
project punt the OFA down the road further?
No, I don't think so. No, it doesn't. Like I said, I wanted to include this discussion today because I knew we were dealing with budget. Plus, I was taking a look at the facilities plan as a whole, recognizing that the DSS was one of the better buildings that we have that makes sense to make a continued investment as
So
well.
no finer staff.
Absolutely.
That's
No
You
fun.
gotta take care of them.
Except for perhaps the engineering office and the
Any other?
All right, any other questions
for us?
for Mitch?
Or can we slide out of the hot seat here? Because I'm okay
Yeah,
with that.
we'll
too.
slide you out of the hot seat. All right,
Fantastic.
Thank you folks very much.
Inverters
I
on the
hope
last
you
10
didn't feel
years?
like you were. in the
It's
hot
10-year
seat.
warranty.
I think so.
So they're expected to last longer, but they'll only replace them for 10 years at that point.
And the
So-
panels are offered with warranty.
25. They have a production guarantee where after year 1, I think they degrade, and it depends on the panel, from 0.5% to 0.7% per year for their output. So if it falls below that, then we get a replacement panel. So we can give you a whole degradation curve over what that looks like over the term of the project, because they'll put out a little bit less power each year. And then that's kind of offset by what we expect the cost of that power is going to be worth. So usually we expect that the pricing that you're going to get for your savings goes up higher than the degradation. But we do the math in between.
But you have a real-time gauge of their performance, the panel?
Correct. So as part of what we install is a data acquisition system that sort of has a weather, output on it. It understands what we're going to have as far as the solar incidents. And then there's a monitor that comes through those inverters to tell us what the real-time output is. So on the system that we put in and the one that's going to go in the highway garage, you'll be able to log into that and get a real-time output of where are we today, where were we last week, where were we last month, what's the equivalent carbon offset for all the electricity we've generated, and it kind of will roll yourself up and you can see that data. So it's something you should be
Is
able to
there anything we
see.
can do about all those pesky clouds up there?
Not that I'm aware of.
Good question, though.
Good question.
They would get a pay raise for that, I think.
But okay, we'll stop taking up your
Thank you.
time here. Thank
All
you
right.
very much,
Thank you so
everybody.
much.
We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Who wants to see your go for it? Thank you.
No, actually, Tony.
Tony's gonna be up.
All right, well, then we're gonna scoot out of here.
Tony's
All right.
Thank you so
Thank you very much.
Bye now.
That's right.
Everything's a lot of money, isn't it?
Bye
Thank
now.
you.
You ever spend a lot of money?
Never.
Never. Oh, we learned about the county. The county spends a lot of money on a lot of things. Tony's gonna help us spend more of it, you know?
Well, I'm gonna try. All right, I'll start with the work schedule. Still mowing. Still doing some concrete bridge deck sealing, catching up on that. We repaired the sidewalk, the concrete sidewalk on County Bridge 159, which is a stop hill on Route 20. Continuing some driveway pipe installations, brush, weed eating, guide rail. Sign maintenance, equipment maintenance, a lot of ditch and culvert maintenance. We spent some time hauling millings from the Parkway project. It both helped out the DOT and helped us to get some more millings in stock, so.
They're popping up all over my town.
Oh, yeah, everybody,
Driveways, roads are turning black.
everybody was, I think all the towns took part in that.
Corey was pulling out big time.
Yeah, it's hard to turn down free millings. And the usual summer storm damage cleanup. Shoulder repairs on County Route 9 in the town of Chatham. And we completed the blacktop ditches and the gaping stone placement on County Route 15 in town of Taconic. And well, we began the shoulder backup on County Route 15, and as of today, we actually had completed that, as well as the shoulder backup on County Route 8 in Gallatin, and we started the shoulder backup on County Route 9 in Chatham. Hired 3 motor equipment operators.
Awesome. Good job.
Yeah. You can strike that hired 1 highway equipment maintenance mechanic. Yeah, he put his 2 weeks notice in, and his job offered him more money, so he decided not to take the job, but at least we had interest this time, so. So currently, we're just down that 1 position. No new
Better than we
business.
were a year ago. You know?
Oh, yeah, the whole world's different.
The update on that Bobcat,
What's that?
is this,
It's the next, the resolution.
Is that the one that
Yes,
we
it's the
have?
same
Yeah.
one that we talked about last one. And I believe I had sent somebody as the specs and
Yeah.
everything on that.
Right.
Is there anything you'd like to improve in the mechanics area?
Like in the shop itself.
A mechanic?
no, you want to spend more money.
We're trying to improve the one biggest issue they got is that it rains in there every time it rains outside. So we're trying to fix that.
Well, it just seems like it's such a retention problem.
It really, it hasn't been a retention problem. For years, we always had mechanics. And with COVID and everything, we weren't attracting them. When we had somebody leave, which was 2 years ago, I think we had that one mechanic leave. We had no applications. But it was the same across the board. It was the same with the MEOs and any other position that once we were finally able to hire again, once we started posting these positions, we had no applications coming in. I think now with the doing away with that 15, 10, and 5, as well as not only the contract raises that they got, but the grade bumps that they got earlier in the year that the union got them. I think it's a much more attractive
Makes it a little more
package now.
enticing.
Tony, what are we paying for one of the techs? I forgot what the number was.
I forgot what the number is too. I don't remember.
The thing of it is that they go to other shops and they'll make considerably more money. They work flat rate, a lot of them. So
Yeah, I mean, one of the big, the
it's a different kind of mechanic that's gonna go work with you.
right. And some guys, they don't like the winter, they don't want the on-call.
Where the new mechanics getting wedgies from the.
No.
guys, and
No.
no one wants to work for us.
No, we've got too much work for them as soon as they come through the door because they're so backed up, so they just go to work. Actually, the both mechanics, the guy that we hired earlier in the year, and then our newest auto mechanic, they're both working out great so far. They're doing a great job and they seem happy. The benefits are still a big draw. And that's one of the things that I think's lacking in some of the private,
Yeah.
private shops, you know. But I guess they just made this guy an offer of, and he'd been there a while, so it was kind of that more familiar. They gave him more money.
So is this okay? Is this spec'd out the way we want it now?
So I talked to Tony about this, I got the specs, and then I talked to manufacturer about it. So Bobcat used to have a belt-driven system, which was totally powerless. I looked at this one is a direct drive inline, so I'm good with it at this point.
We're not gonna all go try it out at Think Equipment.
You can come try it out on the road. We got plenty of work to do.
That's right.
I'll put you right in it. Yeah. And like I mentioned, I don't know if I mentioned it at last month's meeting, but I know I mentioned it in talks with, after the fact. One of the big draws for the Bobcat is us, because we already have the two, and we have, I think, 10 or 12 attachments that we use with those Bobcats. So the kind of switch gears now wouldn't make a lot of sense for
You'll
us.
fit this with no problem.
What's that?
The other equipment
Yep.
fit this
Yep.
new machine.
Yep.
No
Yeah,
changes on it.
they're all interchangeable.
Okay.
So was that a motion, Ryan?
Make a motion to purchase the Bobcat.
Do we have a second?
Tim did.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Skipped right ahead here on me. The next one, what's that? Yeah, actually, I think if you look at the resolution, it was, it was under 80,000, but we did that. We're still doing that thing where we're kind of covering for cost. Well, yeah, the cost is 78,550, so it's 80,000 basically. It is kind of crazy what they're costing. Next one's the authorization to purchase one Tarco Highlander salt spreader from Thai Metal Corporation at a cost not to exceed $9,805 to be paid for out of the vehicular equipment line. And the balance in net budget right now is $175,052.
Is that stainless? or-
Yes, yeah, stainless, yeah. And that's gonna be going in that new F-550 that we bought last year with the plow.
I'll move that.
I'll second.
A motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
And the final one is to be out of the CHIPS line. It's authorization to purchase a Tiger Wildcat boom mower on a New Holland TS 110 tractor from Trius. And that's off of Sourcewell contract 070821 for a cost not to exceed $185,000. And the price on that was, it came in right now on bid at $181,242.
We could use, we had this discussion in budget the other day. We could use CHIPS money
Yes,
for this particular type of equipment.
Yes.
Because it's still mowing the sides of the road,
Yep.
correct?
yes, yeah.
So
And
this is gonna be replacing a current truck.
yeah, it's gonna be replacing a 2002 John Deere that does not have a boom mower on it right now. So most of our over the rail mowers, what we would always do in the winter, we would take the road mowers off, put the over the rail mowers on, and then 20 years later they'd buy a new tractor. They keep the over the rail mower. So the over the rail mowers were 10, 20, 30 years older than the tractors themselves. And they got to the point where they're just not functioning anymore. This will give us the ability to all summer long actually still mow behind the rails, because you get behind on that. And I'm sure some of you have been out and about this summer. We had so many problems with mowers early on where we had one mower.
State's behind too, don't feel bad.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. We got to the point we only had one mower operating in the beginning of the year because all the rest had mechanical. It's 4-wheel drive. Yeah. Yeah, we started buying 4-wheel drives in, I think, 2005. We bought our first 4-wheel drives, and we've never bought anything but since. We learned if we mow in 2-wheel drive and then we get stuck, we still have 4-wheel drive. If we mow in 4-wheel drive and we get stuck, we're out of luck. But, the 4-wheel drive, especially when you have wet seasons, they come in handy. And right now the balance in that budget's $1,058,000.
So we're gonna use the CHIPS.
Yeah, this will be purchased out of CHIPS.
How much does the mower contribute to the overall price versus the tractor?
They don't break it down on the quote. the source well
We
core?
just bought we bought a John Deere tractor with an over the rail mower and the tractor was like 110.
Yeah,
$1,000
Just 110 horse.
$1,000 worth.
yeah, on this quote right here, looks like, and I don't have my glasses, but it looks like it's 88,000 for the mower on
They're
here.
expensive, those.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah. All right, Jimmy made a motion. Do we have a second?
Right here.
Second it.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
And that's all I got.
So you did a pretty good job spending money, Tony.
I knew you just had faith in me. Thank you.
You didn't do the $2 million that we talked about before. That
Well
was
done.
good, you know.
Took it easy.
All right, we have Brian up next with facilities.
Ryan, where'd you buy your tractor from? Through
Through this
Sourcewell or through-
Ogdendaga contract.
Oganaga?
Like the town after you. You
Town.
I was gonna say, what are you doing with over the rail mower? I thought they would find that.
I would be buying John Deere.
Great for fence line. Great for fence line.
All right, good evening, everybody. Quick run through, couple of highlighted, items. We did probably like a good month-long project up in real property, painted, tinted the windows and just got done finishing the carpet. So, it actually came out really good and everyone's happy up there.
Suzette was very happy doing it at county government, so she.
Yeah, she's, you know, I had to sell her on the colors, but she finally came around, so.
Okay,
Yeah.
good man.
Yep. Let's see here, the courthouse, we finally had
Tinting's
the,
better than I did on my pickup truck in high school.
what's that? Yeah, it was professionally done, so. Courthouse, we had the parking lots, sealed and striped. And currently, right now, I'm working on, I've been asked to do a project over there, so I gotta meet tomorrow and, prepare for that one. Let's see here, DSS, as everyone knows, I didn't have a chance to put it on there because I didn't know, I didn't get confirmation from MTech. The air handlers are due October 14th, so we're working on scheduling with, Bob and his staff, kind of, when to do the tear out and install. So, that should be coming up. We're leaning towards November, probably the week when, the 2 days are off. They will work those days, so, that's a good week to start it. Let's see here. And then, now currently up at, the transfer station, helping out up there with the, upgrades that are going on. That's pretty much, you know, and there's basically routine maintenance. Those are the main things we've done so far. So. And I got, which one is this?
Brian's got a resolution to accept one. We like that one.
Yes, so.
I'm with that one.
I need it though. Do a resolution request, to accept the insurance reimbursement check for the tree and fence damage that occurred at the airport in the amount of $8,333.
Second.
Motion is second, all in favor?
Aye.
And then just found out, our vehicle, one of the leased vehicles is finally coming in. That was due last, you know, so, we're looking for authorization to declare one of our vehicles surplus and send to
Move it.
auction.
Second.
Motion is second, all in favor?
Aye.
Short and sweet. Any questions?
See, he's making money.
That's right.
You're spending on.
I wanna,
I'm gonna do some investigating.
I wanna go there.
You can't build a section of fence for $8,000.
Tree damage.
All right, we have Jolene and Wendy up next. Come on, Wendy, you can't sit there like that. You gotta call you up.
Okay, so projects we're working on, we're still waiting for comments from DEC regarding our solid waste master plan. The food digester is still on schedule for late October for delivery. Preparations have been, are starting up at the Greenport Station. We received a lot of requests from our climate smart and zero waste communities to help with the educational and outreach programs. So as we get closer to installation, we'll ask for their assistance for outreach. The contracts for the household hazardous waste events for 2023 have been signed. Tentatively, the dates are scheduled for May and October 29th of 2023. Both events will be held at the County Fire Training Center. And we have a discussion regarding contractual.
Yes, I would like to enter into executive session if somebody would make that motion to discuss some contractual issues.
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Would you like me to close the door?
Cameron, let us know when you're ready.
You said that, I was gonna say.
Brian, there's a sign on that door. You want to flip it around? Thank you.
Everybody listening.
Okay, so we have
An audience.
two resolutions before the committee. The first one is authorization for the Columbia County Solid Waste Department to discontinue the $1 disposal tag as part of the pay-as-you-throw program. The program will now only offer two sizes for disposal options, a small and large tag. The small tag will represent bags up to 30 gallons in size at a cost of $3, and a $5 tag will be for bags up to 50 gallons. Whereas the Columbia County Solid Waste Department offers waste services to Columbia County residents. As part of the fee structure, a pay-as-you-throw program is in place to offset expenditures. Whereas upon Board of Supervisors approval, this change will take effect.
I made a motion.
Maybe a little discussion. Is there a way, without creating more work, if you're already charging seniors a separate fee for like recycling, if you were to lower the fee of that, that would make up for the fact that you're charging more for a bag? I'm just throwing it out there.
Well, we currently charge $35 for the recycling permit.
Yep.
And $50 for anyone over or under 65.
They're already getting it.
So there's already a discount in place for them.
And you gotta see the numbers in the budget.
No,
Right, that's what I'm trying to say. It's not. The operation is not run cheap, you know?
And the people that, the people that can afford to do that are the ones that are doing it, so it's not gonna affect them, because they don't care.
that's what I'm just saying, is like
Right,
seniors
so
are
the
charging.
For the senior they could double up their bags. So I think, you're right, they probably
I'm
do.
telling you right now, my parents, that bag,
Yeah.
my wife, everything's overflowing. It's the bag it in and fill it in.
Yeah.
Anyway, give
Are you
me,
suggesting a reduction in the purchase price of bags for seniors or purchase price of stickers?
What, now?
No, it was for the.
I just been recycling.
Well, if we have a minimum of $3 for a sticker, but if you're over 65, it costs you $2.50.
I'm just looking for, so you don't create more work.
I'm hearing some big exhales over here.
I know.
Well, that becomes problematic because
If they
if a
sell
person
them.
buys, if a senior's buying it at $2.50, but let's say the senior doesn't make it out of their household and they have their grandson or granddaughter doing it for them. That becomes problematic.
I was
That's
just
been an example. So
I was
there's no.
looking at recycling thing, you're already charging a separate fee already.
we already have somebody come in and say, I'm gonna buy a sticker for my
I
grandmother.
know, I know this is frustrating,
You know,
and my,
I'm not.
okay,
I'm really not.
I know. So
This is your decision.
I'm over here and I'm stuttering because I hear that it's a staff problem. It's a staff problem.
It's a staff and a residential.
Right, and it's a
Problem.
residential
It's a
problem
user
because
problem.
right, and the staff are there to do their job, and
Correct.
they're not there to be confronted or argued with or threatened by somebody that comes in. So even if you said you've lost
Do you wanna go
$100,000,
back into executive session?
huh?
Do you wanna go back into executive session? I don't know where you're going with this. We're live again, is what I'm saying. We were in executive session to discuss contractual issues without quoting people on being.
Culpability.
Right.
You can say this. Go ahead.
Yeah, yes, you're right. Just think about it.
She's not talking about specific employees.
No, I'm not
Okay.
speaking of a specific, what I'm saying that if, with the cost, that with the revenue that's been lost versus bringing somebody else on,
Okay.
because with the benefits and everything, but the ability to hire somebody is as difficult as it is to get somebody to put their garbage in the right bag. Am I making sense here?
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
It's such a catch-22. It really is.
At the end
Because
of
if
the,
you had somebody else out there that they know that, well, somebody's gonna go away, so just hold on. They're gonna go in the building in a minute and we're gonna be able to throw anything in there they want to, and other than having an armed guard standing there watching.
Unless you have another person, you know.
You can't afford to hire another person if you can find them. It doesn't matter what you do, they're always gonna try to screw the system.
Because it's already cost us $100,000
Right.
to hire
So we can
someone
look
for
at the
a
county
year.
side of it too. But my whole job was to protect, if you wanted to help the seniors a little bit, you're already charging
Yeah.
a separate fee for the recycling, not that, so it's charging 25 instead of 35 to offset this increased cost of their budget. I'm just trying to, you're not gonna hire more people because you're still gonna try to get you. And if you really wanna argue with somebody that's holding garbage
No,
and you got 20 cars behind it,
no.
keep it, come on,
And we're trying to increase revenues. I mean, this is what our goal is here.
Right.
Unfortunately, nobody likes the answer to this, but our costs are up. Our fuel costs are skyrocketed. We've made major capital improvements because everybody wanted that in all of our stations. If we were a private enterprise, we would be charging 5 to 6 times what we're charging right now. And our residents would have to pay it because that's life.
But we're not a private.
No, so do you
So-
want to support it with government? You know,
To answer, to go with that direction, we're down 100,000 in revenue,
Right.
correct? So we either find more revenue, raise our prices, or we have to offset revenue losses by raising taxes.
Right.
Either way, it's the
So
same.
either way, we're gonna be getting money from our residents. So do we wanna get revenue from our users?
Yep.
Or do we wanna make everybody pay?
because not everybody uses our system.
So I agree with, we don't want to, penalize our seniors that are on a tight budget, but we either take it from everybody or we just take it from the users.
There's a cost of doing business no matter what you label it,
Right.
with solid, what all, everything you do. With solid waste, there's a heavy duty cost in there. It's expensive,
Yeah,
some
more
of it's getting older, and we see it when we sit down and talk numbers and look at the figures. And that was the first thing we talked about at the beginning of this year was, whoa, solid waste is costing us money,
We've discussed it to death.
you
$3 and $5 bags. You made a motion?
Mr. Chairman, you have a motion in a second.
I'm ready to roll.
Okay,
Okay, all in favor?
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Dean,
Nay.
opposed? Did you oppose?
This doesn't have to be a closed conversation. You guys are always
Correct.
searching.
Right, so this is for now.
And this is gonna be moving to full board, so you can continue to
Thank
discuss
you.
it.
No, I'm okay. Thank you. Takes me a bit, but I'm okay.
I know, it's a challenging one.
It is.
It's, but I have been supportive. That's why we started the recycling fee, to make this a user fee thing. To Ryan's point of either we tax all of the residents and we tax residents that aren't using our system. And that seems unfair. So, this is the fairest of unfairs.
It's the fairest of unfair.
Yes, but,
I do.
Screwing somebody regardless.
And I thank you for your presentation. I do.
Yeah, no, there's. All right, Jolene, next,
Okay.
another resolution.
One more resolution, authorization to create and fill one full-time senior account clerk, grade 11.5A in the solid waste department at an annual salary of $43,369. Whereas whereas the solid waste department will abolish the existing bookkeeper position, grade 12A, with an annual salary of $46,662. This position is necessary due to a previous retirement in the department.
I'll move it.
Second.
So you don't
For a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Okay, and that's all I have.
Thank you very much.
So the high doors on the top of the facility,
Yeah, I'm just-
are they that high to put down?
I'll buzz through them about that. I've got some.
Hope you're done at 6:30, right?
Yeah. Well, this-
See what I can
We
do.
could go back to. You know.
So for engineering, I'll start off with highways. So County Route 18, Fishing Game Road, the temporary closure associated with the culvert replacement is anticipated to reopen the second week of October. So that detour will be eliminated. It is anticipated that there will be simple lane closures as they start doing additional tree removal and doing some regrading on some of the banks, and that'll all start starting in November. There is a second road closure that will take place for a second culvert that needs to be installed, but that won't happen until next year. Under highways for County Route 7A, this is the town of Copake and the Copake Hamlet work that's going to be done. We are working with our consultant. They've performed all of their environmental studies
And we've prepared seeker documentation for consideration by this committee as well as the full board to pass a negative declaration for that particular project. So I have prepared a
That has to be done
resolution.
actually at the full board though? Or what-
It has to be done, yes.
By the
So
whole
correct.
board,
So
right?
we will review it at the full board and the full board will make a determination. So
I do want
number,
to compliment on you. That was a very nice job because I'm usually reading those that the builders have done and just everything is no, no, no.
Yes.
You know, you did a
We
good
actually
job.
did take the time, yeah.
A lot of detail in there.
right.
Yeah.
So again, it's the reconstruction of approximately 1.7 miles of roadway of County Route 7A. Most of it's occurring within the Hamlet area. And so it's increasing or improving, safety, walkabilities as far as pedestrian sidewalks and so forth, creating closed drainage systems, which currently everything is on the surface for the most part, and taking care of some of those issues. So we did work with our consultant. We did go through the entire process as far as that, part one and part two. So I do have a resolution for the committee to consider. Number one, declaring the county as lead agency, and then moving forward with a negative declaration. But again, we'll go through the entire process at the full board meeting. All right. Bridges, Woodward Bridge, that's anticipated to be open by the end of this week. I've got a walkthrough with the contractor on Thursday. We're going to put down temporary markings because Colaruso's pavement marking crew would not be, or their subcontractor would not be able to get in for about 3 weeks. Luckily enough, the county has a crew coming in. And so we're going to have that permanent markings done on Monday. And then we'll get a credit from the contractor for that. Stuyvesant Fall Bridge, requests for qualifications have been sent out to all the consultants. We're getting folks coming in, taking a look at documents, and that'll be able to move forward as far as that particular project. And I do have a resolution for the funding of that this month. On the Stall Bridge, just a quick item. Again, I have a separate resolution for that. I'll go into greater detail, but we are moving forward with that as far as liking to move forward with both a financial request authorizing the project, number one, and then secondly, would be actually picking the consultant for that project as well. On an exciting note, I feel the engineering department, solid waste facilities, and highway are all working together at the solid waste facility up at Greenport on various projects, running new electric for the digester that's going to be coming in at the end of October, but then also looking at relocating the compactor. So there's going to be retaining walls that are going to be built by highway as far as the bridge crew. Engineering's handling the design work of that as well. So we're all working together, trying to save the county some money. And everybody's been very energetic about doing that work as well. So that's been very nice. DMV and real property roof replacement is scheduled for late October. And I just received a proposed schedule for the window replacements, which will start the second week in November and actually go through a good portion of November. We're trying to take advantage of the dates that the facility will be closed as far as Election Day as well as Veterans Day. So we're trying to work around some of those major openings and the replacements during that time, but it is going to span over several weeks. So I received the update and we're just working on coordination, and then I'll update the staff as far as DMV Realty, real property and treasure as far as that goes. We'll have a meeting. 911 center. So the supplemental financial information has been submitted back to the state. So this is an ongoing process with respect to the SAM grant. So again, the state has allocated the monies for that particular project. It now actually has a project number. And so we're just working. So we're just working through the process. And again, that is a long, drawn out process with the state where they ask for additional information. This last round had to do with requesting additional financial information, indicating that there were other funds secured to move forward with the project as a whole, as well as indicating the ownership of the property, making sure that actually it was county-owned property, the improvements are being made. So all of that information has been resubmitted. They have acknowledged the materials as far as the fact that they had received them. Airport, the new avgas storage facility dispensing system is now complete. The project's in the process of being closed out. That project did come in on budget without any cost overruns. Also currently out at runway 3 end of the taxi rehabilitation of pavement. That's starting this week, and the airport is closed during this week as that work is being done. It will be reopened by the end of the week. And the design phase for that work has also been closed out. Again, the FAA likes to break those up into phases. The design phase has been officially closed out, and the FAA is actually paying 100% of that work and those expenditures through their normal airport improvement program, but in addition to some ARPA funding from them as well. Resolutions. First resolution is regarding the seeker. Number one, establishing the county board of supervisors as lead agent for the project, as well as after reviewing the part two, offering a
Second.
negative declaration.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Second resolution regarding Stuyvesant Falls Rehabilitation Replacement Funding. So this is a project that's been listed on the state transportation improvement plan. So we are receiving federal and state funding for this particular project. So at this point, we received preliminary information and paperwork from the state, and the requirement is to move forward, indicating that the county is willing, it's a reimbursement program, and the county is willing to take on the initial phases and the initial cost associated with the design work, as well as right-of-way acquisition, the amount of $495,000. Again,
I've only waited 10 years for this, so.
yes, exactly. But that is to be reinstated, can be reimbursed by the feds in the state.
I'd like to move that if somebody would second for me.
I'll second it.
Thank you. All in favor?
And again, Kelly, for that, that's the additional state required resolution language that needs to be added. So
And Kelly, did you get that from Ray? There was a spelling typo in that. Is that the?
I do have a
was in
copy
the
of that.
first
No,
one?
that was the neg deck. So I
Okay,
do have
yeah.
an updated copy of the neg deck.
Okay.
that I will- Next resolution is authorizing the chairman board of supervisors to execute a professional agreement with Pedersen, the amount of $217,620.32 for design right-of-way incidental services associated with the large culvert in the town of Gallatin. So this is funded through the Bridge New York program. Again, the board has already authorized moving forward and accepting the grant monies, and now we've gone through the procurement process with the state, and we are ready to go ahead and
I'll second.
move forward.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Similarly, this is for the second large culvert, also funded through Bridge New York, and this is to execute a professional agreement with Barton LaJudas in the amount of $187,708 for the design and right-of-way
Move it.
services.
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
It's a good job to get that $2 million.
Yes.
Indeed. Resolution requesting the chairman to award and execute construction contract for the repairs and multiple bridge construction, repair of multiple bridge structures throughout the county, with the lowest responsible bidder being Piasecki Steel Construction Corporation out of Castleton, the amount of $347,000. Again, this is budgeted in 2022.
What bridge is this?
This is the multi-bridge kind.
They're multi-bridges. So
I
this is,
second. Got it. I
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Thank you.
next resolution. So this, I have two resolutions associated with the Stall Bridge. Number one is authorizing the establishment of a capital project and the funding in the amount of $2.5 million for the reconstruction and or replacement of the Stall Bridge serving Pleasant Vale Road in the towns of Claremont and Livingston, spanning the road jam.
Motion. Do we have a second?
Jeannie.
Jeannie. Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
With that being said, we did go out for professional services as far as requests for proposals. And the second resolution associated with the Stall Bridge is authorizing the chairman to enter into a professional service agreement with Creighton Manning in the amount of $64,000 for the design and right-of-way incidentals.
Move it.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
This is regarding the fire training center and the new 911 emergency call center. So number one would be establishing the project and the funding for this particular project in the amount of $1,204,000.
And again, that's for the construction of a new addition at the Fire Training Center for the construction of a new 911 call center. The funding of this project will be through the SAM grant received by the state in the amount of $500,000, with an additional $700,000 coming from ARPA funding that the county has set aside for this particular project. And then we're also budgeting $4,000 out of the upcoming 2023 budget.
Can I just jump in? Ray and I talked about this just before I let Copas come over here. So I was expressing concern because it was my understanding that we were not committing to the 911 construction until we had the facilities report, which I understand is still in the pipeline. So,
No, I think that was the OFA building.
That was the old.
no, the people that I've been hearing from are concerned about the 911 bill. Okay, but the thought was, well, by the time we get to September, we'll have the facilities report, and then, we'll feel comfortable in committing ourselves to the 911. So my question is this, two questions. One is, I asked Ray about, I didn't realize that we had gotten the SAM grant, and I guess we really haven't, but we feel secure in it, right?
Correct. Yeah. So the monies associated with the SAM grant at the state level have been allocated for this particular project. So we don't have a contract with the state as of yet.
Right.
But the monies are allocated. We just need to continue to move forward with the process as far as their application process and the backup materials.
Yeah.
So it is eminent that we will be getting the $500,000 for the particular project.
So this isn't committing us to a contractor to build it.
Correct. And that was
Say
part
that
of the,
again?
This isn't committing us to a contractor to build anything, to expend the money. This is establishing a fund so that we have a line item.
yes. So it's chargeable. So that way I would like to actually engage because again, there's another resolution to actually engage the architects to start the programming and the design process. There would be another future resolution once we get to the point of actually putting it out to bid and getting to the point of construction. But that would not take place until we actually have a signed contract with the state.
Right, with the SAM. So the only thing we're being asked to commit ourselves to tonight is La Bella.
Two items: establishing
creating
the project, number one, and then entering into a contract with La Bella for the design process.
And we had spoke with other folks, and I thought everybody in your caucus, I know I spoke to this.
Still had concerns.
You couldn't, that we couldn't complete the whole SAM grant application without having an architect or engineer involved to do the process. Is that correct?
That is correct. Correct. As we move forward.
I'm fine with this.
Okay.
I think I understand well enough to explain to them.
All right.
And we could use ARPA funds with other funding streams.
Yes,
I thought that was a
absolutely.
recent Stipulation that we put in the.
Yes, we do.
Thank you for the clarification.
Okay.
And again, just as a follow-up, so I am continuing to move forward with that. I'm still waiting for a few of the pieces to come together regarding that facilities plan. So I hope to get that actually put together in October and get submitted to the board.
Tonight would have been too long, no, right? So.
Yeah, it would have been too long.
Kelly,
Ray, I owe you an apology. You were explaining something and I made a little wiseacre aside when we were talking about OFA and that kind of stuff. I mean, it's something that's still feasible to pursue.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And again, I think we should be pursuing that. I definitely think that we should be pursuing that as a county.
So I think we have a motion in a second. Is that correct? Kelly, you got that?
Motion.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So the second resolution associated with that same project is authorizing the chairman to enter into a professional service agreement with Labella Associates in the amount of $96,000 for the programming, designing, bidding, and construction admin services.
Move it.
Second.
Motion in a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Next resolution has to do with the replacement of the existing cooling tower at the public safety building, where we had gone out to bid for that particular project. A total of 7 bids were received on the project. And so that was great as far as that turnout. So we are requesting authorization to move forward with entering into a construction contract with the lowest responsibility of T. McElligott, Inc. out of Troy, New York in the amount of $192,000.
Who's the range, right?
He provided it to us in the.
Yeah, well, bear with me. I did get that. It is attached to my notes. And so The range was from the low bid of 192,000. The next low bidder was actually 192,750.
Really?
Yeah, so $750 difference. But it did go up to as high as 226,000. So there was.
But they're
quite a
all in
bit of
range.
range.
Yeah, you know,
Correct,
Yeah.
correct.
I'll move it.
And quite honestly, the biggest item had to do with the increase of the equipment. Originally, when it was anticipated to move forward and Brian was getting quotes last year, the unit, from the information that I got, the unit was about 80 to 85,000.
85, yeah.
Contractors are now telling me the quotes that they were getting was $135,000. So just again, as far as supply and demand.
So I think we had a motion, we have a second?
Yes, we did.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next resolution has to do with the airport, and this is authorizing the chairman to enter into professional service agreement with Passero Associates of Rochester in the amount of $142,000 for the preparation of the environmental assessment for the terminal building or terminal area expansion, including T hangars, taxi lane, bulk hangar, and the snow removal equipment building, also known as the SRE. So this particular project has already been approved by the FAA for funding. So again, it's a 90% federal. New York State is taking 5%, and the county is only responsible for 5%.
Second.
Motion and second, or yeah, all in favor?
Aye.
I have two general resolutions for the committee to consider. The first is authorizing the chairman to enter into an easement agreement with the property owner located in the town of Germantown along Route 9G. So this particular parcel is landlocked. So 9G, when that land was actually acquired for the creation of 9G, which is a state road, believe it or not, it was the county that acquired the land as a whole. DOT only kept the portion that encompasses the roadway and their right-of-way. There's a small strip that remains owned by the county that landlocks this parcel from their land to access onto 9G. They currently have an easement, but they need to make the easement wider because the parcel is going from a residential lot to a commercial lot. So DOT is requiring that they widen it out to 24 feet in width. So this is just
We're giving an easement to this.
to this property owner, so that way they can gain access onto 9G.
They're doing the survey work.
They are handling the survey work, and it is subject to obtaining the survey from the applicant, obtaining the meets and bounds description, and obviously for the county attorney to approve it as well.
Is it provocative for us to retain this property or can we sell it?
If we were to sell it, then it would be selling the strip as a whole to the various parcels along 9G. I wouldn't just sell this one little area.
Do we do anything with it?
No. Everybody, quite honestly, the property owners are all maintaining it. They're using it.
We just don't collect taxes on it.
Correct.
There's not enough land there. Go through the work for it.
Move it.
We have a motion and a second, all in favor?
We should sell it tonight before they get squatters' rights on.
Last resolution has to do with another general resolution. This was obtaining a drainage easement from a parcel owner located in the town of Stuyvesant along County Route 26A for the purposes of repairing as well as future maintenance of an existing drainage pipe that goes through a private property. So again, this is an easement that would be granted from the property owner to the county. So the county currently has a pipe going through this private property. Unfortunately, it has no rights to it as far as being able to gain entry onto the property for repairs. So this
That was because it was done by the state and then given to the town and we didn't get
Oh, I
the,
remember that. one.
Correct. Correct.
And the property owner is willing to just give us the easement.
Yes, they are. Yeah.
Move it.
if we fix a sinkhole.
And we are fixing a sinkhole. Yeah. So we are fixing a sinkhole because it is part of our drainage system.
I think I had a motion in a second.
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
I remember that.
Thank you all.
Yep.
Any questions?
No, thank you, Rick.
Thank you.
Thanks for anything to rush me that.
Tony, I've got one thing, just to go back on quick. Just something, just kick around. Have you considered any areas where we actually would mop off low salt areas? Because we did that in our town around Twin Lakes. We created a low salt zone.
Yep.
You know, for the salt getting into the, lake. county road does also go through it, you know, goes through our town and goes through next to Twin Lakes. I just didn't know if the county in general around sensitive, you know, areas like that created low salt zones like they're doing in other, you know, counties. in the world.
To my knowledge, it's not something we've ever looked at.
Okay.
I think eventually it's gonna be something that kind of, I don't wanna use the word forced on everybody, but you know what I mean? I
Yeah,
think it's something that everybody's gonna have to look at.
Yeah.
Just based on what's going on up north with the
Adirondacks.
Maybe you want to kick it around a little
Yeah.
bit, you know, just in discussion, because
The
this
state's
salt
actually
restricted
mandating
some sensitive areas, you know.
Yeah.
We gotta get away from it altogether. To be honest.
Yeah.
I think we,
Get people to drive on the snow, you
that's
know?
the thing, you gotta change the whole mindset that everybody's in.
Well, we're trying it, so we're gonna see how it goes, but I mean.
The only
only
paradox is if you're lower salt in areas of higher condensation. Right, that freezes.
Yeah.
As long as they have global warming, they don't have to worry about using the salt.
All right, so I didn't want to get it.
Yeah, no, I really think just eventually that's, everybody's gonna have to look at that.
You beat you.
Any other questions or
Because the
comments to
beach
come?
is sort of citrus, it gets in the waterways and compromises the oxygen levels. There's adverse impacts from everything, right?
There is no perfect solution.
Except staying home.
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much, everybody. It's a
Thank you.
long meeting, but we spent a lot of money, had some good discussion.
Thanks, Cameron.